Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German pastor executed for opposing Hitler, observed that educated, well-intentioned people can still become mindless tools if they stop thinking for themselves. In his prison writings, he famously declared, "Stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice." Bonhoeffer explained that, while known evil, like violent dictators, can be identified and fought, because evil always carries within itself the germ of its own subversion, stupidity is different. A person under its spell simply won't listen to reason. Reasons fall on deaf ears. Facts that contradict one's prejudgment need not be believed. Thus, the unthinking follower actually becomes more dangerous than a straightforward villain. He may commit evil without realizing it, convinced of mindless cliches, slogans, or catchwords. Bonhoeffer emphasized that this phenomenon is not an intellectual deficiency. He noted that some highly intelligent people can be remarkably stupid in certain situations simply because they relinquish their independence and critical thinking. Stupidity, he argued, is more of a social problem, a product of powerful situations, than a lack of raw brain power. Under an authoritarian regime or high-pressure group, even liberal intellectuals may stop questioning the new reality, letting conformity creep in. Bonhoeffer's insight was that when enough people bow to slogans and authority without questioning, society itself becomes vulnerable, a collective, functional stupidity that paves the way for atrocities. Social psychology experiments demonstrate how easy it is for normal people to obey harmful commands or join obvious group errors. In Stanley Milgram's famous 1960s shock experiments, ordinary volunteers, the teachers, were instructed by an authority figure to administer electric shocks to a stranger, an actor, for wrong answers. Despite the stranger's cries of pain, 65% of participants obeyed through to the maximum shock level, apparently willing to inflict what they believed were lethal shocks. Milgram's findings show that most people, when ordered by a perceived authority, will override their moral objections. Also striking are Solomon Asch's conformity studies. In line judgment tasks, a lone subject sat among Confederates who intentionally gave wrong answers. Even though the correct line was obvious, a large fraction of participants conformed. On average, 32% of judgments were wrong, and 74% of subjects went along with the group on at least one trial. In interviews, many admitted they knew the truth, but feared ridicule, or simply went along to fit in. These classic results show how group pressure can overwhelm clear evidence. These experiments illustrate why Bonhoeffer's point resonates today. Intelligent individuals can silently do harm under authority or in a crowd. Faced with unanimous social pressure, most people succumb at least some of the time. And the Milgram study suggests that even good people can obey destructive orders in institutional settings. Psychology also explains that confronting us with contradictions creates intense discomfort. Leon Festinger's cognitive dissonance theory says, we feel mental unease when we hold conflicting beliefs or actions. To reduce that tension, people often rationalize or ignore disconfirming facts. In practice, this means someone who has publicly embraced an idea will double down on it rather than admit it was wrong. The mind protects itself by twisting reality. In short, both the pressure to obey and the pain of dissonance can push even thoughtful people into unthinking conformity. Modern social science has given this problem a name: functional stupidity. Researchers like Mats Alvesson argue that many organizations tacitly reward this kind of uncritical thinking. In a functional stupidity environment, people do exactly what is expected without questioning it, often to avoid trouble or keep promotions. Alvesson writes that in today's workplaces, people often perform procedures uncritically without pausing for thought. Bureaucratic rituals, empty slogans, and grandiose titles replace genuine reflection. For example, university administrators may focus on catchy mission statements or enrollment metrics rather than whether students are truly learning, a point Alvesson himself has critiqued. By surrendering critical scrutiny, groups become more efficient at consensus, but also more blind to mistakes, making even smart employees into mindless tools. People who feel they are doing everything right, yet are blindly supporting flawed strategies. Today's information environment adds new layers to this problem. Social media algorithms tend to feed us congenial content, creating echo chambers where our beliefs are repeatedly affirmed. An MIT study of Twitter data from 2006 till 2017 quantified this effect for news. The researchers found that false political news spreads dramatically faster and farther than true news. False stories were 70% more likely to be retweeted than true ones. People crave novelty and emotional content, so fake news propagates broadly simply because other humans share it enthusiastically. The MIT team found it was people, not bots, who made falsehoods viral. This highlights Bonhoeffer's warning. In the wild on social networks, misinformation finds fertile ground when users check their critical filters at the door. Interestingly, recent large-scale studies suggest that the media echo chamber might not always brainwash people entirely. For instance, a 2023 Nature Human Behavior field experiment literally demoted like-minded news sources for a subset of Facebook users. In practice, this reduced their exposure to friendly content and misinformation. However, even after weeks of altered feeds, there were no measurable changes in their political attitudes or extremity. In other words, simply tweaking one's newsfeed did not suddenly flip people's beliefs. This doesn't mean echo chambers have no effect, far from it, but it suggests that changing deep-seated attitudes usually requires more than just diversifying what appears on screen. The systematic review of social media and democracy in the Nature Human Behavior experiment finds that digital media have complex effects. They can boost civic knowledge and participation, but they also correlate with rising political polarization, hate, populism, and eroding trust in institutions. In practice, social media can both inform and inflame. AI-driven misinformation, deepfakes, hyper-realistic fake news, bot-driven rumors only adds to the challenge, making vigilance even more urgent. To resist these pressures, experts recommend active strategies for critical thinking. Rather than passively accepting group opinion or viral claims, we can take deliberate steps such as 1. Play devil's advocate. Inspired by Alverson's suggestions, organizations and individuals should explicitly invite dissent. For example, assign someone to challenge every decision, question assumptions. This reminds a group that a controversial perspective doesn't mean evil. It can be an antidote to groupthink. 2. Slow down and verify information. Before sharing news or opinions, check facts with reliable sources. MIT researchers emphasize that humans drive misinformation spread, implying we can also stop it with behavioral interventions, like pausing to fact-check or being skeptical of sensational claims. 3. Diversify your media diet. Don't live only in like-minded bubbles. Read respected sources across the spectrum. Exposure to different viewpoints helps you recognize your own biases. The Facebook field experiment suggests that merely cutting off echo chamber content didn't instantly change minds, but research indicates that lifelong habits of selective exposure do shape our worldview. Cultivating curiosity about opposing evidence. For instance, subscribing to one outlet you usually disagree with can inoculate against knee-jerk conformity. 4. Be aware of cognitive dissonance. Know that it feels bad when new facts conflict with your beliefs. Festinger's theory implies that this discomfort often makes us rationalize or ignore reality. Recognize these moments as signs to consciously rethink, not to double down. 5. Build critical thinking habits. Question slogans and simple explanations. Bonhoeffer himself implied that complex problems rarely have silver bullet answers. Whenever someone appeals only to authority or tradition, pause and ask why. In a group, encourage others to voice doubts. Even simple mental checks, what's the evidence, who benefits, can break the spell of unthinking loyalty. These steps can help keep one's intellectual independence. As Arl and colleagues note, fighting fake news is ultimately a human problem. Technology can help, but the first line of defense is our own judgment. We must train ourselves, as Bonhoeffer would say, to refuse slogans and to stay self-reflective. In conclusion, Bonhoeffer's theory of stupidity reminds us that the greatest threat may not be an obvious villain, but an unthinking majority. History, from Nazi Germany to modern digital misinformation, shows how smart, well-intentioned people can fall prey to the same dynamics. But the story isn't hopeless. By understanding the psychological forces at play, obedience, conformity, cognitive bias, and by actively cultivating critical awareness, we can break the pattern. In every era, responsible citizenship means resisting the easy comforts of the echo chamber. Only through deliberate vigilance, asking questions, welcoming dissent, and checking facts can we prevent the enemy of the good from triumphing.